Em ngủ ngon nhé, anh đọc truyện cho em nghe. Ngày xưa có một nàng công chúa xinh đẹp.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's story, we follow a warm and peaceful moment in the lives of CEO Quan and Tieu Lac. After a long day of work, CEO Quan decides to stay overnight at Tieu Lac's countryside farm instead of returning to the busy city. Together, they share a simple but meaningful dinner made from fresh vegetables grown right in the garden. As the evening continues, they walk around the farm, harvest vegetables, feed the chickens, and enjoy the calm beauty of rural life. Under the quiet night sky filled with stars, they sit together, drink warm ginger tea, and talk about life, happiness, and the peace they find when they are together. It becomes a simple yet unforgettable night that strengthens their love and trust. If you enjoy heartfelt stories about love, family, and peaceful farm life like this one, don't forget to support our channel. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next emotional and inspiring stories about Tieu Lac, CEO Quan, and many other touching journeys. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next story. After finishing their warm and simple dinner, the evening air around the farm became cooler and more refreshing. The sky had turned a deep shade of blue, and the last traces of sunlight slowly faded behind the distant hills. Tieu Lac gently suggested that they take a walk around the farm before it became too dark. CEO Quan immediately agreed. For him, every moment here felt peaceful and meaningful, something he rarely experienced in the fast-moving city. They walked side by side along the small dirt path that ran through the vegetable garden. The soft sound of their footsteps mixed with the quiet rustling of leaves in the breeze. Rows of fresh vegetables stretched across the land, glowing faintly under the dim light from the farmhouse. Tieu Lac proudly showed Quan the different crops she had planted over the past months. She pointed at the green rows of lettuce, the climbing bean plants, and the tomato vines that were heavy with bright red fruit. Quan listened carefully, occasionally bending down to look more closely at the plants. Although he was the CEO of a large company, standing in expensive offices most of the time, here he seemed completely comfortable getting his hands a little dirty. When Tieu Lac handed him a small basket, he immediately understood what she wanted. Together, they began picking the ripest tomatoes and a few cucumbers for the next day's meal. Tieu Lac could not help but smile when she saw how focused Quan looked while harvesting vegetables. The image of a successful CEO carefully choosing tomatoes in a quiet farm garden felt both surprising and touching. She teased him playfully, asking if he planned to change careers and become a farmer one day. Quan laughed warmly and replied that if working on a farm meant spending more time with her, he might seriously consider it. After collecting the vegetables, they walked toward the small chicken coop behind the farmhouse. The chickens were already settling down for the night, but a few of them still wandered around the yard. Quan helped scatter some feed on the ground while Tieu Lac checked the wooden gate and the small nesting boxes inside the coop. The gentle clucking of the chickens filled the quiet night. As they worked together, a cool breeze passed through the yard, carrying the faint scent of grass and soil. Tieu Lac noticed that Quan was wearing only a light shirt, and the night air was getting colder. Without saying much, she quickly walked back into the house and returned with a thin jacket. She gently placed it over his shoulders. Quan looked at her with surprise for a moment, then smiled softly. He thanked her and asked if she was tired after working the entire day on the farm. Tieu Lac shook her head and said she was used to this life. In fact, she felt happiest when she could care for the farm and share these quiet moments with someone she trusted. Standing under the warm glow of the outdoor lamp, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. Neither of them needed grand words to understand how much they cared for one another. In the calm and simple life of the farm, their connection felt deeper and more genuine with every passing moment. After finishing their warm and simple dinner, the evening air around the farm became cooler and more refreshing. The sky had turned a deep shade of blue, and the last traces of sunlight slowly faded behind the distant hills. Tieu Lac gently suggested that they take a walk around the farm before it became too dark. CEO Quan immediately agreed. For him, every moment here felt peaceful and meaningful, something he rarely experienced in the fast-moving city. They walked side by side along the small dirt path that ran through the vegetable garden. The soft sound of their footsteps mixed with the quiet rustling of leaves in the breeze. Rows of fresh vegetables stretched across the land, glowing faintly under the dim light from the farmhouse. Tieu Lac proudly showed Quan the different crops she had planted over the past months. She pointed at the green rows of lettuce, the climbing bean plants, and the tomato vines that were heavy with bright red fruit. Quan listened carefully, occasionally bending down to look more closely at the plants. Although he was the CEO of a large company, standing in expensive offices most of the time, here he seemed completely comfortable getting his hands a little dirty. When Tieu Lac handed him a small basket, he immediately understood what she wanted. Together, they began picking the ripest tomatoes and a few cucumbers for the next day's meal. Tieu Lac could not help but smile when she saw how focused Quan looked while harvesting vegetables. The image of a successful CEO carefully choosing tomatoes in a quiet farm garden felt both surprising and touching. She teased him playfully, asking if he planned to change careers and become a farmer one day. Quan laughed warmly and replied that if working on a farm meant spending more time with her, he might seriously consider it. After collecting the vegetables, they walked toward the small chicken coop behind the farmhouse. The chickens were already settling down for the night, but a few of them still wandered around the yard. Quan helped scatter some feed on the ground, while Tieu Lac checked the wooden gate and the small nesting boxes inside the coop. The gentle clucking of the chickens filled the quiet night. As they worked together, a cool breeze passed through the yard, carrying the faint scent of grass and soil. Tieu Lac noticed that Quan was wearing only a light shirt, and the night air was getting colder. Without saying much, she quickly walked back into the house and returned with a thin jacket. She gently placed it over his shoulders. Quan looked at her for a surprise for a moment, then smiled softly. He thanked her and asked if she was tired after working the entire day on the farm. Tieu Lac shook her head and said she was used to this life. In fact, she felt happiest when she could care for the farm and share these quiet moments with someone she trusted. Standing under the warm glow of the outdoor lamp, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. Neither of them needed grand words to understand how much they cared for one another. In the calm and simple life of the farm, their connection felt deeper and more genuine with every passing moment. As the night slowly deepened over the quiet countryside, the farm became wrapped in a peaceful stillness that felt almost magical. After finishing their small chores around the garden and chicken coop, CEO Quan and Tieu Lac walked back toward the farmhouse. The soft yellow light from the porch lamp illuminated the wooden steps and the small chairs placed near the entrance. Beyond the porch stretched the dark fields of the farm, and above them spread a vast sky filled with countless shining stars. Quan paused for a moment and looked up at the sky. In the city, bright lights and tall buildings often hid the beauty of the night, but here the stars seemed incredibly close and clear. Tieu Lac noticed the way he was quietly admiring the sky, so she gently suggested they sit outside for a while. She brought out a small teapot and 2 cups, placing them carefully on the wooden table beside the chairs. Soon, the gentle aroma of warm ginger tea rose into the cool night air. Tieu Lac had prepared it earlier, knowing the temperature would drop after sunset. She poured the tea slowly into the cups and handed one to Quan. The warmth of the cups spread through his hands, making him feel even more relaxed. He took a sip and smiled, complimenting the comforting taste. They sat side by side listening to the soft sounds of the countryside. Crickets chirped somewhere in the grass, and occasionally a gentle breeze passed through the nearby trees, causing the leaves to whisper quietly. In that calm moment, there were no phone calls, no business discussions, and no pressure from the outside world. It was just the two of them and the peaceful rhythm of the farm. Quan turned slightly toward Tieu Lac and looked at her with a sincere expression. He told her that nights like this were rare in his life. As the leader of a large company, his days were usually filled with responsibility and constant decisions. Yet here, sitting on a simple wooden chair at her farm, he felt something far more valuable than success or wealth. He felt peace. Tieu Lac listened quietly. Her eyes softened as she heard his words. She gently rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth and safety that came from being beside him. Neither of them spoke for a few minutes, but the silence between them felt comfortable and full of meaning. After finishing their tea, they slowly stood up and prepared to go inside the farmhouse. Before entering, Quan walked around the yard to check the gates and turn off the outdoor lights, making sure everything was secure for the night. Meanwhile, Tieu Lac tidied the table and placed the teapot back in the kitchen. When they finally closed the door and the house became quiet again, both of them felt a deep sense of comfort. It had been a simple evening, sharing dinner, working together on the farm, and enjoying the peaceful night. But it was also a night filled with genuine care and affection. In that quiet farmhouse surrounded by fields and stars, the bond between CEO Quan and Tieu Lac grew even stronger, promising many more peaceful nights together in the future.